Hello everyone, this is your host Satyajit Sen, and on behalf of ET Brand Equity, I welcome you all to the session on decoding the Indian smartphone user. Now, as you all know, the Indian smartphone market is extremely big and vibrant, and it's growing very rapidly. As per reports, there are over 748 million smartphone users in India currently, and the market is second only to China, with an average of 100 million units shipped every year. The numbers are big, and the market is expected to cross rupees 2 trillion by 2021. Now, as these numbers suggest, the handset market is burgeoning, and the consumer demands are also changing at a rapid pace. To meet these consumer demands, brands are regularly innovating and bringing out new products to meet the hardware requirements, the specifications, the price point requirements of every consumer here. And for doing that, brands need a lot of data. And hence, they're collecting a lot of consumer data across multiple demographics, income groups, price points, and so on and so forth to understand the consumer better and deliver onto their expectations through their products. Today, we are going to understand what goes into collecting that data. What are the pain points that handset manufacturers and marketers face when they are going to collate that data and understand the insights out of those data? It's my great honor today that I have been joined by an extremely esteemed panel of experts today who have been driving the Indian smartphone market and the growth in the market. It's my great honor to introduce Mr. Nipun Maria, Director of Marketing Strategy at Vivo Mobile India, Mr. Shivam Ranjan, Head of Marketing at Motorola India, Mr. Hikojiro Izusaki, Partner at Nomura Research, and Mr. Kunal Sarkar, Vice President at PredictView. So welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for helping us and helping our audiences understand and decode the Indian smartphone user better. So before I start, and before we really go into deep understanding of the market, I would really want to come to my brand custodians, the handset manufacturers in this panel here, and really want to understand, from their wide portfolio of products and a wide variety of consumers they're catering to, how do you see consumer expectations evolving in the last few years, right? We have seen consumers using the smartphone, using the screen, so as to say, as for different users, right? And for different users. So how do you see the consumer expectations changing here? And what's the way forward for handset manufacturers? So we can start with Shivam here. Shivam, your take on how do you see the evolution that you see in the expectations of consumers?
Thanks, Satrajit. Pleasure to be a part of this panel and kickstart this session. A very interesting question, I think the smartphone industry and the smartphone consumer is ever evolving. So, in simple words, if I have to say one thing about the smartphone consumer in India, is that they want the best of specifications, the best of features at the most optimal price point, right? So that's the mentality, and that cuts across different price points. But yes, the consumer is evolving with the changing needs, with the changing technologies that surround him or her, and hence what we are seeing is certain trends which are emerging out of that. Now, these trends, for example, some of the key trends that I can identify, for example, is the need for, with the enhanced usage of content, the content consumption that has grown significantly with the post-COVID, era where consumers are working, consumers are entertaining themselves continuously through their primary device, which is a smartphone. They're using a lot of content. They're consuming a lot of content, and all of that is stored on their primary device. So there is definitely need for certain hardware and software interventions there. For example, in terms of hardware, consumers are looking more and more for better experience in terms of displays, right? Because that's the primary vehicle with which they can consume the content. They're looking for better performance in terms of ensuring that they're able to entertain themselves through games, etc., using their smartphones. But when it comes to software, because there's so much content and there's so much data that is stored on the device, they're also looking for enhanced software security and privacy features on their smartphones. They're even more conscious about that nowadays. And third, because they're spending so much time on their mobile devices, beyond hardware, also the software experience has started to matter to them, right? So it's important for the consumer to get the most optimal software experience as well, to be able to spend that kind of time on the devices.
I would really like to move on to Nipun here. Nipun, what's your understanding about the market? You know, Shiva mentioned about the changing patterns of consumers here, right? What's your take? You know, they are more educated now. They know what they want. So how do you, as a brand, cater to that?
Yeah, so just adding on to what Shiva mentioned with respect to the changing consumer needs. If we look at the smartphone business, I see that the changing consumer needs emerge from two different forces, right? One force is the way the consumers are evolving. And that comes from the fact that while 5-6 years back, there were people who were first time experiencing smartphones. Now we have people or the Indian smartphone market has become more like a replacement market. So as you become a replacement market, the consumers are much more aware of what are the things they want in a smartphone, what are the features they prefer, and maybe what are the trade-offs they can make. This is one side, the force of being a replacement market. The other is the force of, as all of you mentioned, so many use cases which have emerged, right? And these use cases have come both from, hardware side, as it has come from, say, software side. From hardware side, if you see how, smartphone cameras have evolved to unimaginable limits. And, Vivo having pioneered, say, gimbal in a smartphone, and that to leading the industry in that way, and not just smartphone cameras, but if you see screens, right, fast charging, battery capabilities, right, all these hardware forces have also played a significant role in changing the consumer needs, as well as the other force of the software, where gaming has emerged, education has emerged, OTT platforms which were in the Indian market possibly non-existent 5-6 years back, right, are now really a big trend for everybody to catch on to, especially from the consumer side. So both factors, which is one, how a replacement market has changed consumer needs, and from the other side, the hardware and the software, and how these forces have also changed consumer needs.
So on that note, Kunal, I really want to come to you here, right? You have been working closely with a lot of smartphone brands, and helping them understanding the consumer price, the consumer data sets, as such that would help them in marketing their products better. So what are the kind of questions that you see from marketers emerge, right, in terms of data sets that they are really looking to gauge when it comes to the Indian consumer market?
As rightly said by other fellow panelists, today the consumers are evolving. They are more and more demanding, and brand and marketers need to be way more proactive when catering to them. Specifically, we've seen that, in the premium phone segment, which a lot of smartphone manufacturers are pushing these days, consumers are not just looking for, product features or price point. Obviously, they're not very driven by the price point. What they really want is the brand experience, the after services, the kind of experience they get when they go to a store. These are certain things. So from a recent survey that we had done, we get to know that about 84% of the respondents, they were looking at the brand experience over the product. Product feature was, way later in the sequence than the brand experience. So definitely that's one of the things that consumer is looking for, which is also followed by 5G now. A lot of the consumers, they are looking forward to how 5G will evolve their experience, the way they use and consume content, and more specifically post-COVID, we know that everyone has gone to work from home or work from other places, remote locations, and what we foresee that in coming times, in most likelihood, is going to be a hybrid model that people are going to be working. School's going to be in a similar position. education, a lot of it has moved on to online platforms. So that the usage of data, as Shivam was rightly saying, that the use cases where how a smartphone manufacturer can provide a handset which can help them in having a very smooth delivery of content without any glitches, and which is easier on the eyes also. So we saw a surge in the tablet sales during the lockdown period. And I remember it was, everywhere that, you speak to anyone, they would say that, there is a shortage of tablets, which no one could foresee. A reason that the premium segment phones are getting pushed, I think major reason is the screen size also, which kind of helps them do both the things on one handset, and your mobile literally with your office work.
On that note, I really want to come to Mr. Izusaki here, right? And want to understand what is your research, right, about the Indian consumer, Indian smartphone consumer really say about him? What are the kind of price points they are looking at? What are the kind of features that they're looking at while they are, going into the market in search of their new handset?
Basically speaking, I totally agree with the points about the consumer expectation changing very rapidly. I have been staying here in India since 2015, and I did several research and wrote research papers such as Indian changing middle class. So regarding the Indian middle class, changing a lot, especially smartphone users are particularly flexible and evolving quickly. Regarding for example, the price point which they are select, they are taking care from two perspectives. One is, of course, value for money. So the function is enough good for this money. They are very serious and they are very selecting strictly. At the same time, they are taking care this smartphone can get a good reputation from their surrounding member. So if other members say, okay, the smartphone is good, they are willing to pay. So from these kind of aspects, the smartphone user are changing not only the value for money perspective, not only function perspective, but also how other people to say about their smartphone. So that's why I think the functions which makes consumer change are lots of functions they have. So that's why it is difficult for marketer to predict what kind of change come next, what kind of insight we can get. This is my understanding.
So Nipun, as a marketer, right? I mean, there is we spoke about the consumer aspect here, right? But you as a marketer, what are the kind of challenges that we're currently facing in terms of, getting that equipped with data, right? That can really help you better decide and better decide on the price point, on the features, on the product itself, right? So what are the challenges that you face?
Satyajit, I think the simple answer to your question is that as a marketer, we must very, very quickly accept that this is a heterogeneous market and not a homogeneous market. It is important for us to understand that there are different consumer segments, and different consumer segments have different needs, and you as a brand has to then decide which needs you can cater to, or after segmentation, what is your targeting and therefore your positioning. In simple terms, it is all marketing 101, but sometimes simple things are the most difficult to execute, and I think it isn't true in any other business as much as it is true in our business.
Right, that's a very well said point, because marketing 101 is something that every marketer needs, but I'm not too sure how better you can basically gauge and equip them with that. But on that note, I really want to come to Kunal here. Kunal, so how do you see as predictive view, right? How do you see yourself equipping our marketing friends here and our marketer friends here with better data, so that the product becomes better, the product becomes much more larger in that sense and covers all the aspects that we currently mentioned?
So Satyajit, so one of the biggest challenge when we speak to any brand or marketer that they face is, they have heaps of data. There is data getting generated every second for them, but it's scattered all over the places. They're all playing in isolation. There is not a single place where that data is there together. So one of the most important thing and imperative thing for the brand and marketers, it becomes that, they put all these data sets together to understand the consumers better, the needs better, and what the future can be, kind of predict that proactively rather than, once you reach there and then decide, okay, now this is what I need to do. As we all know, smartphone market is, I think, one of the most rapidly changing markets. So even before you start a campaign, it's time to tweak it. And then by the time you tweak it, it's time to go to the next campaign. There is a series of phones which comes one after the other. The calendar is very hectic. And so it becomes very important for us as researchers or as insight partners to, not only provide the data, which, a lot of research agencies today, they provide the data to the marketers, and it becomes their nightmare to put it all together. And from insights, what actions needs to be taken, quickly decide that and do it in a very timely fashion so that, they can get optimal value for the bucks that they spend. At Predictive View, what we try to do is, just not collect the data or put it all together in one place, but make that insight actionable so that, when the report or the dashboard as we have, it reaches to a marketer and he opens it, he knows that, based on the recent purchases, these are the kind of actions that I can take to quickly tweak my campaigns, quickly tweak my messaging, quickly tweak my supply chain to get a bigger share. I was, the last time we were speaking to Nipun, I think it was the point which was taken by him that, the data is there, the insights are there, but what actions need to be taken is something becomes the job of the CMI person who's sitting with the brand that, okay, now I have 20 insights, which is the one that, will help me in taking that action faster and quicker.
Correct. That's a great point. And on that note, I really want to come to Izosaki here. So Izosaki, we have heard about data points. We have heard about making data more explainable for the marketers here. So you as a researcher, how do you really opine on making sense of the immense data that we have and that is being generated from a diverse market like India?
So to decide the good decision as quick as possible, so data should be real time or collecting almost real time is required in detail. At the same time, the data should be precise. So I'm saying very difficult thing. So real time and huge detailed data with precise perspective, I think this is very difficult. But from the data provider perspective or technology provider perspective, so these 2 points, so data preciseness, real time, and detail is important, as well as the technology should be, or analytics function should be customized very well.
So on that note, I think we have really come to an end of today's discussion. We have touched upon a lot of pertinent points that really help in deciding what the consumer is looking at from brands and handset manufacturers. We have talked about the feature wars, that we have talked about the price wars here that really rule the market. We have talked about some really futuristic aspects that are going to drive this market forward. It remains to be seen how handset manufacturers and how brands really innovate themselves, right, and really play the game up, right, to cater to the changing demands of the consumers that we see in today's market. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I would really want to thank my panelists here. Thank you, Nipun. Thank you, Shivam. Thank you, Hikojiro. And thank you, Kunal, for joining us and helping our audiences and helping us understand the Indian smartphone consumer better. I really hope this panel, there are a lot of takeaways for all of our viewers and all of us here. Until
Thank you.
next time, thank you for joining us and stay tuned to ET Brand Equity. Thank you so much.